In the sterile white laboratory aboard the International Space Station, Dr. Minji Lee frowned at her data screen. The numbers didn't make sense. For the third time that week, her gravitational wave experiment was showing impossible readings. She tapped her stylus against the desk, creating a soft rhythm in the otherwise quiet lab. "Doyeon, can you check the calibration again?" she called to her assistant. Doyeon-son looked up from his workstation. His dark eyes showed concern behind his glasses. "I already checked twice this morning. Everything is properly calibrated." Minji nodded. "Then why does the energy signature spike every time you enter the testing chamber?" The mystery had begun 3 days ago. During a standard experiment measuring gravitational wave distortions, the equipment had registered an energy surge that exceeded their measurement scales. At first, Minji had assumed equipment failure. But after replacing and recalibrating everything, the anomaly persisted, but only when Doyeon was present. "Perhaps I should stay out of the chamber entirely," Doyeon suggested. "No, that's not scientific. If you're causing this effect, we need to understand why." Minji stood and stretched her back. After 2 years in reduced gravity, her body still sometimes ached from the strange conditions. The lab door slid open with a soft hiss. Dr. Tae-woo, the Galactic Commonwealth's representative on the station, entered. Unlike humans, Taiwa's species had evolved on a high-gravity world. His short, dense frame moved with practiced precision in the station's artificial gravity. "Dr. Lee, I've been reviewing your reports." Taiwa's translator rendered his clicks and whistles into clear English. "These readings are concerning. If accurate, they violate 3 fundamental laws of physics." "I know," Minji said. "That's why I've been running the tests repeatedly. The effect seems linked to Doyeon's presence. When he approaches the testing chamber, the readings spike." Tae-woo tilted his head, his large eyes blinking slowly. "And this doesn't happen with you?" "No. Only with Doyeon." "Have you tested other humans?" Minji paused. "No. We haven't." "That's a good idea." Over the next 2 days, they tested every human on the station. To everyone's surprise, all 15 humans produced similar energy readings, though with varying intensity. None of the 7 non-human staff members caused any unusual measurements. In the station's conference room, Minji presented her findings to Station Commander Jiho Park and the Commonwealth representatives. "So all humans cause this effect?" Commander Park asked, his weathered face serious. "Yes, sir. Every human produces an energy field that somehow interacts with our experimental equipment," Minji explained. "It's as if humans can manipulate kinetic energy in ways our physics can't explain." Dr. Tae-woo stepped forward. "I've sent these findings to the Galactic Science Council. They're skeptical but interested. If humans truly possess this ability, it could change our understanding of your species." Commander Park frowned. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "That humans may have hidden physical capabilities," Tae-woo replied. "Capabilities you yourselves aren't aware of." Doyeon, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "Like what? Super strength?" "Potentially," Tae-woo said. "Under specific conditions." 3 days later, they set up a new experiment. Doyeon stood in the center of the testing chamber, surrounded by monitoring equipment. Following Taiwa's instructions, he focused his mind on a simple task, lifting a weight that had been calibrated to be just beyond his normal strength capacity. Nothing happened at first. Doyeon strained, his face reddening with effort. The monitors showed increased heart rate and brain activity, but the weight didn't move. "Try thinking about someone you need to protect," Tae-woo suggested through the intercom. Doyeon closed his eyes. He thought about his little sister back on Earth, how he'd always promised to keep her safe. Something shifted inside him, a warm sensation spreading from his chest to his fingertips. When he opened his eyes and tried again, the weight moved. Not just moved, it lifted smoothly as if it weighed nothing at all. In the observation room, Minji gasped. The energy readings were off the charts. "What's happening?" Commander Park demanded. Taiwu's expression was unreadable. We're witnessing something the Commonwealth has never seen before. Humans have always been considered physically weaker than most spacefaring species. But this suggests you have untapped potential abilities that have remained dormant or unrecognized. Minji looked through the window at Doyun, who now stood staring at his hands in bewilderment. The Galactic Science Council will want to investigate this thoroughly, Taiwu continued. If this ability can be developed, it would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. As Doyun exited the chamber, his face showed a mix of confusion and wonder. What does this mean for us? He asked. It means, Minji said slowly, that everything we thought we knew about human limitations might be wrong. The Commonwealth testing facility buzzed with activity as humans from the space station lined up for additional tests. Dr. Minji Lee watched from behind a glass partition as Doyun demonstrated his newly discovered abilities for the 5th time that day. The small crowd of alien scientists clicked and whistled to each other in amazement. Please lift the weight again, instructed Dr. Taiwu, his translator converting his complex speech patterns into simple English. Doyun closed his eyes, focusing on the metal block in front of him. It was marked as weighing 300 kilograms, far beyond what a human of his size should be able to lift. Yet when he concentrated, something strange happened. The air around his hands seemed to shimmer slightly, and he lifted the block with apparent ease. Remarkable, whispered Dr. Hyun Woo, another Commonwealth scientist who had arrived yesterday after hearing about the discovery. The human is generating a localized field that temporarily alters the fundamental forces around the object. Dr. Minji approached the glass. And you're certain this isn't just some unknown technology? Quite certain, replied Taiwu. We've scanned him thoroughly. This ability appears to be biological, not technological. In the week since the initial discovery, the team had tested all 15 humans aboard the station. Every single one demonstrated some level of this strange ability, though with varying degrees of strength. Commander Jiho Park had shown the strongest results, able to exert force equivalent to lifting nearly half a ton when properly focused. Subin, a young engineer, entered the observation room with a tablet. Dr. Lee, I've compiled the historical data you requested. Minji took the tablet and scrolled through the information. This is fascinating. Look at these records from Earth, cases of mothers lifting vehicles off trapped children, or average people performing incredible feats of strength during emergencies. Adrenaline responses, said Commander Park, who had been quietly observing from the corner. We've always attributed these stories to adrenaline and hysteria. But they're real, said Minji. And according to these Commonwealth archives, there have been documented cases during the 20 years since first contact where humans displayed unexplained strength. Taiwu nodded. Most were dismissed as measurement errors or equipment malfunctions. No one considered the possibility that humans might possess abilities beyond our understanding. The door slid open, and Jae-woo Kim, the station's medical officer, entered with fresh results. I've completed brain scans of all test subjects during their demonstrations, she announced. There's a clear pattern of unusual activity in the hypothalamus and pituitary gland, coupled with specific brainwave patterns we've never observed before. Can you explain it? Asked Commander Park. Jae-woo shook her head. Not entirely. But I believe humans evolved this ability as a survival mechanism. Throughout history, we've suppressed it except in extreme situations, probably because sustained use would be physically damaging. That afternoon, in a larger testing chamber, they tried different scenarios. They discovered that emotional states significantly affected the strength of the ability. Fear produced quick bursts of power. Determination led to more controlled, sustained effects. Most interestingly, when humans worked together with a shared purpose, their abilities seemed to amplify each other. This could explain much about human history, mused Taiwu as they watched 3 crew members cooperatively move an object that should have required mechanical assistance. Your species accomplished remarkable feats of construction and engineering despite limited technology. A chime sounded, and Commander Park's communication device lit up. It's a priority message from Earth Command, he said, stepping away to answer it. When he returned, his expression was serious. Word of our discovery has reached the highest levels. The Commonwealth Council has called an emergency session to discuss the implications. Are they concerned? Asked Minji. Of course they are, said Doyon, who had joined them after his testing session. Think about it, for 20 years, they've thought of humans as physically weaker than most species. Now they're discovering we have hidden strength that could potentially make us more powerful than anyone realized. Commander Park nodded grimly. The political implications could be significant. Some species might see this as a threat. But we've never hidden this ability, argued Minji. We didn't even know we had it. That may not matter, said Taewoo quietly. Fear often overrides logic in politics. Later that night, alone in her quarters, Minji reviewed the data again. Something about the energy signatures seemed familiar. She cross-referenced them with other known phenomena and froze when she found a match. The energy humans generated when using their strange ability closely resembled the fundamental force patterns observed in the formation of stars, a controlled fusion of matter and energy that defied conventional physics. We're not just strong, she whispered to herself. We're tapping into something much more fundamental. As she stared at the matching waveforms on her screen, Minji realized they had only begun to scratch the surface of what humans might be capable of. The emergency session of the Galactic Commonwealth Council took place in the Grand Circular Chamber on New Harmony Station. Representatives from 17 spacefaring species sat in curved rows, their attention focused on the central podium where High Counselor Zhong delivered his address. Behind him, a large screen displayed footage from the human testing sessions on the International Space Station. As you can see, Zhong said, his voice calm despite the tension in the room, humans possess a previously undetected ability to manipulate kinetic energy in ways that defy our current understanding of physics. Minji and Commander Park sat in the human delegation section, uncomfortable under the scrutiny of so many alien eyes. Some looked curious, others concerned, and a few openly hostile. This discovery requires us to reconsider our initial assessment of human capabilities, continued Zhong. The Science Division has compiled a report of incidents since first contact that may be related to this phenomenon. The screen changed to show footage from 20 years earlier, the historic first meeting between humans and Commonwealth representatives in Earth orbit. The focus was on a small detail that had been overlooked. A human diplomat, nervous during the ceremony, had unconsciously gripped and partly crushed a ceremonial artifact made of an alloy that should have been impossible for humans to damage. This was dismissed as a manufacturing defect, explained the science director, a tall being from a high-gravity world. But in light of recent discoveries, we must reconsider. More incidents followed. A human survey team that survived when their transport crashed on a mining colony. The strange warping of a supposedly unbreakable containment field when a human engineer worked on it. A rescue operation where 3 humans had moved debris that should have required heavy machinery. All these events were documented but explained away, said the science director. No one considered the possibility that humans themselves might be the cause. A representative from the Marin Collective, a species known for their caution, rose to speak. If humans have had this ability all along, why are we only discovering it now? Could this be a deception? Commander Park stood to respond. We had no knowledge of this ability. Throughout our history, these incidents were rare and usually occurred during times of extreme stress. We called them miracles, acts of God, or simply wrote them off as exaggerations. The evidence suggests humans evolved to suppress this ability, added Minji, stepping forward with her research. Our bodies contain natural limiters that prevent us from accessing our full strength except in emergencies. It was a survival adaptation. Using this ability consumes enormous energy and could physically harm us if used regularly. The chamber filled with the various sounds of multiple species discussing among themselves, clicks, whistles, low rumbles, and electronic pulses from the artificial intelligence representatives. An elder from the Kyono species, one of the founding members of the Commonwealth, called for attention. I remember our first negotiations with humans, he said, his translator converting his musical language. We were impressed by their creativity and adaptability but considered them physically unremarkable. This was part of why many supported their admission to the Commonwealth. They seemed to pose no physical threat to established species. His statement caused uncomfortable shifting among several delegates. And yet, he continued, in the 2 decades since, humans have integrated peacefully into our society. They have not shown aggression or territorial expansion. This suggests their character as a species is not defined by physical power, even latent power they were unaware of. The military coordinator, a stern figure with armored skin, disagreed. Protocol demands we reassess the threat level of any species when new capabilities are discovered. Humans now represent an unknown factor. We represent the same people we were yesterday, Commander Park said firmly. The only difference is knowledge, not intent. Hours later, after intense debate, the Council reached a preliminary decision. A dedicated research program would be established to better understand human abilities. Security protocols would be reviewed but not immediately changed. Most importantly, a joint human Commonwealth team would be formed to explore the potential applications and limitations of these newly discovered abilities. As they left the chamber, Minji noticed how other species were looking at her differently now. Some with newfound respect, others with subtle fear. It will take time for them to adjust, said Sun Wu, an older human diplomat who had lived among the Commonwealth longer than most. For 20 years, they've thought of us as the physically weaker species with interesting ideas. Now they must reconsider everything they thought they knew about us. That evening, Minji received a private message from Dr. Tae-woo. The Commonwealth Science Division had uncovered something else in their review of historical records, evidence that human children showed stronger manifestations of these abilities, which diminished as they aged and their neural pathways became fixed. This suggests, wrote Tae-woo, that your species' true potential may be greater than even these tests have shown. The question now is whether that potential can be reawakened. Minji stared at the message for a long time, wondering what this meant for humanity's future among the stars. The new research facility on Luna Base gleamed under the harsh sunlight. Inside its reinforced walls, 20 human volunteers prepared for another day of training. 3 months had passed since the Commonwealth Council approved the Human Potential Research Initiative, and progress had been remarkable and sometimes frightening. Doyen stood in the center of the testing chamber, his slim frame now more muscular from the intensive training. He wore a special suit covered in sensors that monitored his body's every function. Around him, various objects of increasing weight and density were arranged in a semicircle. "Ready for today's session?" asked Dr. Minji, watching from behind the safety barrier. Beside her, representatives from 5 different Commonwealth species observed with intense interest. "Ready," Doyen replied, taking a deep breath. "Begin with the standard warm-up," instructed Minji. Doyen closed his eyes and focused. The air around him seemed to shimmer slightly as he accessed what they now called his kinetic field. He approached the first object, a metal cube weighing 500 kilograms, and lifted it with apparent ease. 3 months ago, this would have been his maximum. Now it was just the beginning. "Vital signs stable," reported Jaiwoo, the medical supervisor. "Brain activity shows the now familiar pattern. He's maintaining better control of energy expenditure." One by one, Doyen moved through the increasingly heavy objects. When he reached the final item, a dense block of Commonwealth alloy weighing nearly 2 tons, he paused to center himself before lifting it completely off the ground. "Incredible," whispered one of the alien observers. "The power-to-mass ratio exceeds anything we've recorded in any known species." Not all the volunteers had progressed as quickly as Doyen. Some struggled to consistently access their abilities. Others excelled in different aspects. Miho could generate intense bursts of strength but couldn't sustain them, while Sumin showed less raw power but remarkable precision in her control. After the morning session, the volunteers gathered in the recovery room. Their bodies needed extra nutrition and rest after using abilities that pushed human physiology to its limits. Doyen collapsed onto a reclining chair, exhausted but smiling. "You're getting stronger every day," said Hannah, another volunteer who had been watching. "I can barely lift half what you can." "It's not just about strength," Doyen replied between sips of his protein drink. "The scientists think I'm more naturally attuned to the frequency of the kinetic field. Everyone has different aptitudes." In another section of the facility, Minji met with the Commonwealth Oversight Committee. The data from the morning's tests projected on the wall behind her. "The results continue to exceed projections," she explained. "Most importantly, we're beginning to understand the mechanisms. Humans appear to generate a field that temporarily alters the fundamental forces around objects they interact with, effectively reducing mass or increasing their own strength. And the limits? Asked the Talos representative, a being whose silicon-based biology made him especially skeptical of human capabilities. We haven't found them yet, Minji admitted. But there are costs. Extended use causes significant metabolic strain. We've recorded temperature spikes, accelerated heart rates, and concerning brain activity patterns during peak exertion. The military applications are obvious, stated the security coordinator bluntly. Which is why we're focusing on rescue operations and emergency response scenarios, countered Commander Park, who had joined the meeting. These abilities can save lives across the Commonwealth. Back in the training chamber, afternoon sessions had begun. Today's focus was on cooperative applications. Doyun and 3 other volunteers stood at the corners of a massive platform loaded with equipment weighing nearly 10 tons. Remember, instructed their trainer, synchronize your fields. Feel the connection between you. The 4 humans closed their eyes, focusing not just on their individual abilities but on creating a shared field. Slowly, the platform began to rise, the combined power of their abilities making possible what would have required heavy machinery for any other species. In the observation room, the Commonwealth representatives watched with a mixture of awe and concern. This could destabilize power structures throughout the galaxy, whispered one. Or usher in unprecedented cooperation, replied another. That evening, as Doyun rested in his quarters, he reviewed messages from his family on Earth. News of the human abilities had spread, causing a mix of pride, fear, and religious interpretation across human society. His younger sister had written asking if he was becoming a superhero. Not a superhero, he typed in response. Just discovering what humans have always been capable of. As he prepared for sleep, Doyun noticed his hands trembling slightly, a new development that concerned him. The training was taking a toll on his body, despite the medical supervision. Many volunteers experienced similar symptoms: headaches, muscle tremors, occasional nosebleeds after intense sessions. They were pushing the boundaries of human potential, but Doyun sometimes wondered if they were pushing too hard, too fast. A message flashed on his tablet: tomorrow's schedule. The Commonwealth had arranged a practical demonstration for diplomats from 17 worlds. The program's future funding depended on showing reliable, controlled applications of human abilities. No pressure, thought Doyun as he drifted to sleep, just the future relationship between humans and the galaxy. The emergency alert blared through Centauri Hub Station at 0300 hours local time. Red warning lights flashed in every corridor. The massive space station, home to over 20 million beings from across the galaxy, shuddered as structural integrity alarms activated throughout the eastern quadrant. Status report, demanded Station Director Juno as he rushed into the control center, still pulling on his uniform jacket. Major structural failure in sectors 17 through 22, reported the chief engineer, her fingers flying over the control panel. A micrometeor shower penetrated our outer shields. The damage is cascading, primary support columns are buckling. On the main screen, a 3-dimensional model of the station showed the affected areas in flashing red. The damage was spreading faster than the automated systems could contain it. Evacuation status, asked Juno, his voice steady despite the crisis. In progress, but there are over 2 million residents in those sectors. The emergency shelters can't handle that volume, and we don't have enough ships for full evacuation. Juno made a quick decision. Contact the human training facility on Luna. Request immediate assistance. 30 minutes later, as the station's situation deteriorated further, a Commonwealth fast transport ship docked at the emergency bay. The doors slid open, and 8 humans in specialized containment suits stepped out. Doyun led the team, his face serious as he studied the damage reports on his portable screen. We need to reach the central support column in Sector 19, he told the station's engineering chief who had come to meet them. If it fails completely, the entire eastern quadrant will tear away from the station. The chief looked skeptical. That area is already experiencing dangerous structural instability. The automatic systems have sealed it off. That's why we're here, said Suman, another member of the human team. Take us there immediately. As they moved through the station, residents from various species pressed against viewing windows to watch them pass. Most had only heard rumors about the human abilities being developed. Some looked hopeful, others doubtful that these physically unimposing beings could make any difference. When they reached the sealed doors to Sector 19, the station's emergency teams had already gathered. The local commander briefed them quickly. The main support column has fractured at 3 points. It's holding for now, but our models predict complete failure within 2 hours. Beyond it, there are still over 300,000 people waiting for evacuation. We'll handle the column, said Doyon. Your teams focus on evacuation. As the doors opened, they faced a scene of devastation. The normally pristine corridor was twisted and buckled. Emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows. In the distance, they could hear the ominous groaning of metal under stress. Remember your training, Doyon told his team as they activated their suit's enhanced features. Conserve energy. Work together. They made their way to the central column, a massive structure 30 meters in diameter that helped support an entire section of the station. Now it showed massive fractures, with internal supports visible through the gaps. Sumin, Jiho, take the upper section, ordered Doyon. Miho and I will stabilize the base. The rest of you focus on the middle. Each human took position around the damaged column. They closed their eyes, focusing their minds and accessing the ability that had so shocked the galactic community. The air around them began to shimmer as they generated their kinetic fields. Back in the control center, Director Juno watched through emergency cameras as the impossible unfolded. The humans pressed their hands against the massive column, and somehow, defying all physical laws he understood, began to force the fractured pieces back into alignment. Where the damage was worst, they physically held the structure together with their bare hands. They're actually doing it, whispered the chief engineer. The structural integrity is improving. For 3 hours, the human team worked without rest. Their special suits monitored their vital signs, injecting stimulants and nutrients as needed to keep them functioning. Still, the strain was enormous. Doyun's nose began bleeding inside his helmet. Miho collapsed once but insisted on continuing after a brief rest. Throughout the station, all eyes were on the emergency broadcasts showing these humans performing what many species considered impossible feats of strength and endurance. By the 6th hour, emergency repairs were in place. The evacuation had completed successfully, with no lives lost. When the human team finally emerged from the damaged sector, they could barely walk from exhaustion. Director Juno was waiting. In a gesture that would later become famous throughout the Commonwealth, he bowed deeply to them, a sign of profound respect in his culture. You have saved 20 million lives today, he said simply. 3 days later, as the human team recovered in the medical bay, they received word that the Commonwealth Council had unanimously approved the expansion of the human training program. What had begun as a scientific curiosity was now recognized as a vital resource for the entire galaxy. So what happens now? Asked Sumin, still weak from the ordeal. Doyon looked out the viewport at the stars beyond. Now we learn to use these abilities properly. Not as weapons, but as tools to help build something better. On screens across the Commonwealth, the footage from Centauri Hub Station played repeatedly, humans working together to prevent a disaster, using abilities that defied conventional physics to save countless lives. The narrative about humanity was changing forever.